Hi and welcome back. In this video I'm going to be demonstrating how the entire bellows goes together. The valves are the first thing to go in. In this clip I have the valves already installed on the center board, and I'm just now finishing the installation of the valves on the bottom board. I need to store the bellows in an unheated building for the winter, so I plan on taking the valves out so that I can store them inside. The other reason I want to take the valves out when I'm not going to be using the bellows for a while is that I have to store the bellows vertically, that is, standing up on its base plate. This means that the valves will have a tendency to sag towards the nozzle end of the bellows. And I don't want the leather in the valves to crease and develop a memory that will prevent the valves from working properly when I lay the bellows horizontally. Once you have the support bar locked in place and you have the valves installed, you're ready to seal up the bellows by installing the access hatch covers. The cover is just held together by two carriage bolts. The wood and the sheet metal are held together by a nut that has been counterbored into the surface, and a wing nut operates the clamp that holds it in position. I've drilled two finger holes into the surface of each cover so that you have some way of lifting the cover into position. I got lucky when I installed these hatch covers because everything was still nice and flat and I had a really good seal, so I didn't have to worry about air leakage through this opening. If the hatch cover isn't making a good seal for whatever reason, you can always install some foam weather stripping around the outside edge of the sheet metal. I designed the lift handle so that it can be installed without removing the bolts. This not only saves a lot of time, but it prevents any chance of misplacing the bolts by losing them in the grass or dirt. On this nozzle I do need to remove the bolts to install it, but I plan on modifying it so that it can be installed the same way that I installed the lift handle. I designed a cover for the bellows to keep it protected if the weather is uncertain. It's totally supported by the frame and it doesn't interfere with the working of the bellows at all. It does take a couple of minutes to tie it into position, but if it ever starts to rain you can unroll it quickly and drape it over the bellows to protect it, and then tie it down later. I usually start by tying the four corners of the cover to the frame. And then I'll use the front tie at the nozzle to draw the cover tight. The ties at the bottom corner at the nozzle end are to keep the cover from being lifted if the wind picks up. I'll finish off by tying down the two side seams. Here you can see where I need to modify this cover because the new location of the support bar is holding this side seam open. These two long straps at the back are used to tie the rolled up cover to the frame. So this is what the bellows looks like when it's flipped right side up. And here it is in action, blowing up a makeshift windsock. This is what's called a double lung bellows. The bottom chamber fills with air, and then when I pump the handle it pushes that air up into the top chamber. And then from the top chamber it goes out the nozzle into the forge. So as long as I keep the top chamber filled, there's going to be a constant flow of air to the forge. For the bellows to work properly, the nozzle has to be the right size. If the nozzle is too small, it'll create too much back pressure and the air from the upper chamber won't get to the forge. On the other hand, if the nozzle is too large, there won't be enough back pressure created and it'll be impossible to fill your upper chamber, so you'll get a puffing action rather than a continuous stream of air. I made this nozzle with a 2-inch pipe because that's what fit into the portable forge that I was using at the time. But it turns out that it's exactly the right size for this bellows. I don't have to work very hard to keep the upper chamber filled, and it still supplies plenty of air for the fire. The main thing I like about this bellows is that it's so easy to move around and set up. Even though it weighs close to 100 pounds, you're never really lifting the weight because it's always supported either on the ground or on the frame. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.